Can you tell I'm pumped for this? So, yeah, right. So we are going to talk about how women found their path and struggles along their way, and how they built something that truly matters. Now, these are normal people doing extraordinary things because I want you to know that you are extraordinary too. And so, our very first inaugural conversation, I could not be more excited to have Jennifer Toon. Woo! Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited and honored to be your first guest.
Yes, and we're so glad to have you. And Jennifer is the executive director of the Lioness Justice Impacted Women's Alliance. Lioness is an incredible nonprofit led by and for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated women and gender expansive people in Texas. And their mission is bold: to build power, challenge systemic harm, and create community rooted in dignity and justice. And Jennifer has been at the heart of that work. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining me today. So let's start at the beginning. What inspired you to step into this work and eventually create Lioness?
Oh man. Well, I think the story begins at the back table in the day room at the Mountain View unit, which is now called the O'Daniel unit in Gatesville, Texas. It's one of the high security units for incarcerated women here in Texas. And just talking with friends and just us really, having this conversation about often in our incarceration experience, it feels like, or we are told that women don't stick together. Women are constantly, fighting with each other. They can't get it together. They can't solidify. They can't be in unity the way that we would see formerly incarcerated men. Men were constantly sticking together to, do lawsuits or, do protest and things like that. Well, I mean, there's reasons to that, right? That women have greater consequences, and I could go on about the dynamics of how women are punished differently than men. You don't want to get in trouble because you can't use the phone or have access to visits to see your kiddos, right? But these were the lies that we were told, but it just didn't feel like that was the truth because the community on the inside is what saved my life. So, I mean, I was incarcerated for the first time when I was 15. I did a total of 20 years as a youth and then as a young woman in the system. And so, having these conversations with friends about, yeah, and one day we're going to get out of here and we're going to make these stories and this suffering that we've all experienced in the system, and we're going to use those stories and our lived experience as the power to create change. And when I got out, I was working some jobs in East Texas, and finally found a a peer policy position with the Coalition of Texans with Disabilities to work and learn how to do policy around criminal justice at the intersection of disability. And it was during that work that I got to step into this space of criminal justice reform. And I'm going to tell you something, Jennifer. Once again, the voices of women, especially system impacted women and queer folks, are just completely just stepped on, spoken over, pushed aside. And it was during our fight to stop the execution of Melissa Lucio, who was a dear friend of most of us, that we realized, you know what? I'm tired of fighting, trying to get a seat at the table. We're going to make our own thing. We're going to create our own group just for our population.
I feel so moved by that you've turned something that a lot of folks could take as completely debilitating and spirit crushing, and you turn it into something that helps other people. And I've seen women, no matter what their circumstance, get stuck by, I can't because I'm not smart enough, and that's not a great idea. I don't know how to. So what was the moment that you knew that you couldn't wait for somebody else and that you had to?
I mean, I really think the catalyst to kind of really just really finally push us over the edge was Melissa Lucio's execution, right? Like, this is literally life or death. And the reason that we started advocating to stop her execution to begin with is because we saw that there were lots of advocacy groups that were not giving her the same attention that men on death row have. And I'm like, well, we just can't let somebody we know die. This is deeply personal. And so all of our hopes and dreams and visioning, amongst my friends, which I didn't even know at the time there were other women in other units that were having that same fire start to come inside them. It just solidified at the right moment. And because we had to. Because if we weren't there, and I truly believe that if we hadn't been able to do our advocacy efforts in conjunction with Melissa's attorneys working on their end, I really believe that she wouldn't have got the public pressure that she did to stop that execution, and she could be dead, an innocent who we believe is innocent. So, I mean, there is no choice at this point, and we don't know what we're doing. I didn't know how to run a nonprofit. All I know to do is do a mission, vision, value statement, and get a
Right.
group of people together. We had no idea what we were doing, but step by step, I realized that we are more than just our story. We're capable folks of a lot of other skills.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about not knowing what you're doing and doing it anyway. And I'm curious about the fortitude that took and what you learned throughout your journey in incarceration and your life and how that became a part of you to just try things. Like, where is that bravery? How do you keep pushing forward even though you don't know what to do next?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there were many moments in my life and through 20 years of incarceration that you keep coming to a choice. You keep coming to a decision of either, I'm going to literally just give up, let my spirit die, or maybe even physically, because it is this moment of life or death. And so I either choose that path or I choose life, and I choose not to be defeated. And a lot of times for me, it was, there would come this moment of, how dare you? How dare this world treat me as a young woman like this, and my friends and the women that I saw around me, right? Like, how dare that you gaslight us into thinking that everything is our fault and our problem? There's complex reasons to why people end up in prison, but it just seemed for us a different standard that wasn't applied to men that really made me angry. And so it was just always coming to that fork in the road and always choosing, no, I'm not. And it was the other women, because a lot of times for myself, Jennifer, that I could have just said, just F it,
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
It was them. And it's the other women around me in my community that keeps a fire burning in me. And so it's like you can have an internal resilience. Maybe some people, there's a stronger or more than others, but that can be grown into this huge fire with community, because I believe community is what solidifies and strengthens that internal resilience.
I noticed you say us, 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 us. Very rarely have I heard you use the words I and me, and that divine purpose to help the community and be stronger and help people grow. How have you leaned on the community in order to continue to grow Lioness?
Well, I mean, I think that's the key, right? And, I posted something on LinkedIn and on some of my social media about leadership. And I really believe in the idea of what it looks like to have a more of a matriarchal, women-led, gender-expansive led leadership model, which I think is very different than what dominant culture teaches us. And so that framework is the we. As a leader, it is never me. Like, maybe I carry more responsibility and I carry more burden. Well, honey, if you don't like that, then this ain't the role for you. But at the end of the day, I can't do the things that I do well without the other women in my community. Right. So the success of Lioness over the past couple of years that just started out as an idea. It was not Jennifer Toon. Maybe I was the one that said, you know what, we finna do this, but and put some pieces into place. But the strength of it is the we. And I think that any great leader has to understand that this is not about them. They carry a responsibility. And maybe that's a heavier responsibility, but it is the community. How else do you inspire? I don't know. It just seems very narcissistic to me. And I hear a lot of leadership coaches that, I'm not trying, if there are guys listening right now, I'm sorry, but a lot of
It's okay.
yeah, a lot of dominant culture professionalism that says you hear a lot of I am responsible, and I am only responsible for what I have control. And it's like, you are responsible for this community and your role in it. And I think that can apply even in the for-profit spaces too.
For sure. When we had an earlier conversation prior to this, you had talked about how you spent a lot of your time on the inside studying and learning. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you read and discovered for yourself?
Yeah, so I worked in the library, and that was on purpose, and they allowed me to stay in that library for many years. Normally, your jobs are shifted around a lot, but I was the clerk in the library, so that was on purpose, so I would have access to books and newspapers and magazines, just basically whenever I wanted. And I'm a writer at heart, I'm a reader, and I have a journal that I still have from all those years ago, is that when I would check out books, I would make notes. I call it my cat journal, which because it has a little cat on the front of it.
Yeah.
I'm a cat lady.
We know love. Yes.
But obvious Linus, but I made notes from every book that I ever read. And I did the nonfiction. If I'm going to read, I want it to be for a purpose, not that fiction's doesn't have its own purpose, but I would make notes in that. So whether it was, more of the classic things from Dale Carnegie, like How to Win and Influence Friends and People, whether it was notes from that or business books, what the real truth of the success of business, philosophy. And so I would make these notes of these nuggets I would find, and I really wanted to teach myself how to be successful. I had a dream that I wanted to do something important and impactful for advocacy. I just didn't know at the time what that would look like, but I knew I had to have, I want to make best use of the time I've got. And so let me learn all the things that are out there that make business and life successful, that the philosophers knew, that business authors knew.
Right. What's so unique about you is you read and you consume all of this information and you apply it in action. Like you are up to something big, and you, to me, come across as completely unstoppable, no matter what. Right. So I'm just like, when you were a kid, how does your life now compare to what you dreamed about as a child?
Oh man, very different. When I was growing up, what little kid doesn't want to be a veterinarian, but like I was into basketball. I wanted to be a basketball star and go to college for basketball. I really didn't have, greater visions or goals about what I'm doing today. I would have never suspected that this is where my life would be. And I think what I think I was talking to a good friend of mine just about like that learning piece, like because knowledge is completely useless if you don't apply it. You can learn all the stuff in the world, but if you don't actually implement it, then it's no good. There's no point to it. And what I've done over the past, gosh, I've been home 6 years, was released on Taylor Swift's birthday.
National holiday.
December 13th, 2018. And well, thank you. And that was my sign from God. That's my little special thing, that things were going to be okay and I was on the right track. But, what I've done over these past 6-7 years is I'm watching, not for what people do well, which I mean, I notice that's not what I mean. I'm watching for where things go wrong, whether it's in my other job spaces or whether it's in volunteer spaces or people's relationship. I'm just like, girl, mark that off the list, because I need to figure out how to prevent that from happening here at this organization. So I'm constantly assessing where people are making mistakes and trying to figure out what are the ways that I can head that off here.
Yeah, so your whole journey, it seems to me, it's like paving your own way and constant continuous learning and lifting other people up. So when you think about helping other women who might feel overlooked or underestimated, what do you want them to hear?
Well, I want them to hear, first of all, understand and figure out why you feel that way and where that's coming from. And this is, again, in the very professionalism world, they don't want to talk about the bigger things, that we're swimming in a cesspool of dominant culture, white supremacy, racism, patriarchy. This is where, we're swimming in. So understanding that and looking at where these feelings and thoughts about yourself are coming from. And maybe it's also right, like childhood trauma or the things that you've been through. That's the first thing. Because if you don't fix that and you don't start figuring that piece out, then it doesn't matter what you do. It's not going to work. So that what I would say, do the work, do the inner work first. And then you start to understand more and more, well, wait a minute, I am powerful. Who said that women couldn't do X, Y, and Z? How do I combat these narratives or the way I'm treated in the workplace as a woman or as a queer person? How do I speak up for myself? And really, once you start teasing that out and healing that, it gets a lot easier to say, well, I deserve, not in a narcissistic way, I deserve whatever my heart wants. And let me make a plan for that. And let me be brave. And maybe it doesn't work out. Well, who cares? A failure's just a lesson. Like, who gives a damn? But you have to figure out where are those voices coming from that are telling that you can't do that.
I work with so many women and they don't know what they want. Deep down, they know what they want, but usually it's, I want more money, I want a promotion, I want a different house, I wish I looked this way, I wish I had a romantic partner, I want more friends. But the why behind that, we're always chasing that down, right? And I find like a lot of times people just want to be heard, valued, acknowledged. People want to be seen and accepted for who they are, where they are in their life circumstances, right? You grew up in a different circumstance than I did, than somebody else. And just being here together and being seen and being present and being heard is such an underrated action.
Yeah.
So when you're out there doing your work, do you get a lot of hate or naysayers? And if so, how do you handle that? I can imagine. Like, I wonder. I'm so curious.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think maybe there have been times, especially right, when I got out, that I didn't always handle conflict well. I wasn't fully, I feel like you have to take responsibility for your mental health. And that's why I said you have to understand all those other things, that you have to understand where your behavior's coming from and how to fix that. So, I think maybe I have bumped heads in the past with folks because Jennifer is still healing and she's got a lot of prison trauma and mental health, right? But like, instead of saying I messed up and I should just give it up and I don't belong here, well, let me take responsibility for that because I want to be a better person. But, even outside of, we're just living our lives. We're just going to events and going and doing our advocacy in front of legislators and being empowered and we're just happy doing our thing, right? I still, I still hear things, ugly things, about me or my leadership or the women in our group that, I mean, I can't even really feel comfortable repeating here. And I'm like, you know what? At the end of the day, we're doing good work, and this is probably rooted in that cesspool I talked about people's own feelings about, a woman who's running an organization who's a lesbian, and, or the women that are in my space. That is where that's coming from. And so I've learned to not take those things personal. I don't give, I'm trying not to use profanity. I use a lot of profanity.
You don't give a
I don't give a, I don't.
kind.
Right.
No.
Because it doesn't matter. Because me and my group and my community and the work that we're doing speaks for itself. And so a lot of that comes from that really ugly cesspool, that comes from dominant culture, that comes from defying professionalism. Who said that we have to show up a certain way? We show up the way that we feel good about, as long as it doesn't harm people. So if we show up dressed a certain way or using a certain bit of language or whatever, that's my community. And who are you? I have an incredible friend in another advocacy group in North Carolina, and she said, "Girl, if they didn't squat and cough with you, which that's what you got to do when you get stripped, if they didn't squat and cough with you, they don't get to say a damn thing about the way that you move, groove, or run this organization to none of y'all." And I really took that to heart, and I tell the women that I work with, baby, the IRS and employment laws have to dictate things to us, but outside of that, we get to decide how we run this, how we operate, how we share leadership, how we disperse pay or mutual aid. This is ours, and I don't care what anybody thinks of us. I get very passionate about it, Jennifer, because I'm like
I'm completely absorbed in what you're saying. And two, especially in today's right in culture, I've been stretching myself on how to have difficult conversations or even just being present with people as they're expressing different views. And so to just listen and try to understand the root of where people are coming from. And so that's my hope, right? Like, I love your voice and I love what you do and I love what you stand for and all of the work that you do. And with everybody just coming together and wanting the best for each other in their community, that's huge. And I don't think we can overlook that.
Yeah.
So what is something that you wish people better understood about women who are justice impacted and the work that Lioness is leading.
Yeah, I mean, that incarcerated women and trans folks, they're no different. What we would always say is like, well, girl, we got caught. You know what I mean? It's like, everybody has made a mistake. Some mistakes are worse than others in terms of impact and legally, but there is no separation other than, we were charged with an offense and we had to go to a cage, right? I think understanding that we're just like anybody else, and that just because we made a mistake, which we hear a lot with that pushback with some of our work, is you've hurt somebody, you broke the law, you deserve everything you get. Like people inside prisons complaining about not having air conditioning, it's 135 degrees in there. Well, you did it's like somehow you do one mistake, or you're still on this path of trying to figure out how to get beyond your mistakes, that everything else is negated. And like it's weird to me as a country or a state like Texas that says we're Christian values, the idea of redemption and forgiveness is just completely almost foreign to society when it comes to formerly incarcerated people. And to just know that we're just like anybody else, and we're just trying to make the best of our lives and our community the best we can.
Yeah, I hear that, right? It's wanting that redemption because you've done your time and here you are making the world a better place. So we're going to do a little lightning round.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm ready.
So what is one lesson you've learned that you wish everyone knew?
You said lightning and now I got stuck.
These are not easy.
Okay. One lesson that I learned that I would love for other people.
Yeah, you wish everyone knew.
Girl, it's not that serious. Honey, you thought it was the end of the world, and when that girl broke up with you, you got to jail. She moved on 2 weeks later, and then a month later, you're like, I don't even care anymore. Why did I go through all that screaming and yelling and busting out windows when it just felt like the end of the world? It's not. It's not that serious.
Even starting your own company, you started your own nonprofit.
Right. Right, because it's like, we just go like, hey, it was just a lesson. Nobody's going to die if I don't get this report turned in exactly today. I hope for some grace, and we're just going to keep moving. So you don't have to be perfect. It's not that serious. Keep it in perspective.
I love it. Okay, so if you could go back and tell your younger self one thing, what would it be? Fun for me.
I would tell my younger self, you're not invisible, you matter. Your feelings matter. And you don't have to escalate. You don't have to do, like, your feelings matter. Figure out a way to express them that people can hear, because I think when I was younger, people that feel like they're not seen or heard, it's because they're doing all these ways to be seen and heard that they think are effective, and they're not actually doing that. In my own life, I'm like, well, I've told this person 5 times and now I've exploded on them. I'm like, but wait a minute. Did I really tell them? No, I hinted and I did this. No, I didn't tell them. And so just learning to be direct and be calm.
Be straight.
And be straight, right?
What's going on?
Yeah.
Right. I get it. Okay. This one's hard. In one sentence, what does leadership mean to you today?
Leadership means the community. I think that sums it up, at least my leadership style.
Mic drop. Okay, so if listeners only remember one thing from this conversation, what should it be?
If you are a leader or you want to be in a leadership role, it is not a siloed thing. And if you feel like it is, if you feel like you have to be the one, if you feel like there are things you can't tell your team, you need to look at your ideas about power and your old ideas that we have all been taught about what leadership and strength looks like, because I'm telling you, that's not what it is.
So what's the next big dream that you're chasing?
Well, I think it's just been continuing to build Lioness. We are mainly part-time and volunteers, so continuing to build in this climate, especially more stability and strength, and I think we can accomplish all the goals. For myself, you've inspired me you have inspired me to really. I've always loved speaking. I've always loved writing, and I think I'm feeling a little tug to maybe start doing that more in a very intentional way. I want to tell you, Jennifer, when you're talking earlier, about, people like they don't know what they want, but deep down they might, but they don't know what they want. I've had a lot of friends inside that I would sit and talk, and I guess now I understand it was coaching, that, oh, I want to be a writer, I want to do this, and I would say, like, well, make you some goals and start, and then, oh, I didn't do it, didn't I? Said, let me tell you something. When you say you want something, once you figure out what it is, you'll always know if that's really it, because it'll be a priority. Nothing will stop you from doing it. When I said I wanted to start Lioness, and I got to my point where it's like, enough is enough, I did it. So we make time for the things that we truly want. Even if we're scared, even if we're nervous, even if we don't know what we're doing, it is a priority. It's about to burst out of us. And so I do feel that kind of nudging that is kind of growing ember of maybe doing some other writings that I used to do.
I can't wait to see what that is, because I know whatever it is, I'll just probably cry myself through whatever it is, whether it's your speaking, your writing, whatever it is. You're very inspiring. So if people want to get involved with Lioness, how can they do that?
Sure, you can contact, it's Lioness Justice Impacted Women's Alliance. You can contact us on any social media platform, or you can go to our website, which is lionessjiwa.org. Send us an email. Shoot me an email.
I'm sure you'll get a flood here, Jennifer. So just before we close, thank you so much. It's been such an honor to have you on today. And I'm just curious, what has it meant for you to be able to share a little bit about your story and leadership style on Unmute Yourself today?
Well, I mean, certainly if I'm reaching other women, because that's my heart and soul, that if it inspires you, that y'all, if a woman that spent half of her life in some of the worst conditions in prisons in the state of Texas can figure out, hey, I'm worthy, I'm of value, I know how to be a leader, and do it, and just do it, just jump in and do it and be successful, anybody can. This is not for certain people or certain personality styles. It's inside of you as a human being to find your spark and do it.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. You have inspired me as always, and I'm so glad to have gotten to know you a bit. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining me on this very first podcast, very first episode of Unmute Yourself. And if today's conversation inspired you, please share this episode, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories of leaders creating work that truly fits and matters. Until next time.